Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Oasis Springs, which is one of the base game worlds, and I'm going to be building a kind of Mediterranean, a little bit of a Tuscan family home, but this time round for the Caliente family. So this house ends up having 4 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms, and it's built on a 40 by 30 lot. Even though it's got 4 bedrooms, you could very easily make this house into potentially a 5 or even 6 bedroom house. Like on the inside, it just ends up being absolutely colossal. But this time round, I just thought it was time to finally sit down and build the Caliente family a brand new house for my save file. Now, I will admit, I am posting this video a little bit later than what I expected. I am posting this a couple days later to what I normally post, and so apologies for that one. I was just working on this house and I just didn't want to rush it. Also did encounter a few technical issues, what I'll get on and I'll tell you about shortly. But yeah, for this build, I wanted to give the Caliente family a brand new house, but on the inside, kind of make it feel a little bit of like a time capsule. And what I mean by that is the interior decoration, I tried to make it feel like it was very early 2000s Mediterranean Tuscan kind of inspired. I hope you know the kind of interior design that I am thinking about, but basically in my head, the sisters have not decorated this house since like 2004 or something. And so in terms of the interior decoration, yeah, I tried to go for like a Y2K kind of Tuscan interior, and honestly I felt like a fish out of water. I was really struggling with it, but I pushed through, and yeah, I'm really happy with the end result, and so I really hope you like it as well. But anyway, getting on from that and actually getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've pretty much built the main structure for the build. I'm now just coming in and honestly just trying to block off some sort of like weird glitching that was happening with the curved walls. You know, I said technical issues with this build, honestly, headache central when I was doing this build, because I decided that I wanted this to have some sort of like curved feature at the forefront of the build, which is lovely in real life. But in The Sims 4, having a curved wall is just, it's a recipe for a headache. Like honestly, they're just so finicky. And when I placed down the rounded walls, there was some sort of like glitching happening on the tower, and I basically just covered it up straight away with some sort of almost like trim going around it. The one that I've used surprisingly is from the Life and Death expansion pack, but yeah, I basically put it down to almost like disguise a little bit of clipping on the actual wall itself. In terms of the rest of the build though, I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest. I'll find it for you and I'll pop it up on the screen so you can have a little look. Doesn't really look that similar by the end to the picture that I was looking at, but hopefully if you was to look at it, you can see some similarities here and there. I ended up taking a lot of inspiration from it for like the end landscaping. So once I've placed down like the little driveway portion, I've done a little bit of landscaping, hopefully you can see more similarities. In terms of like the actual structure of the build, I just kind of went with what I just thought would look best in the game, so yeah, it doesn't end up looking that much like it. But in terms of the windows and doors that I went for this build, I used my absolute favourite windows in the game, which are the ones from the Industrial Loft Kit. They're the ones that are on the bottom left hand side. You see the ones that are a little bit like semicircular at the top? They are from the Industrial Loft Kit. Absolutely love them windows. Haven't used them in a while, and so I used them in this build. But then I also used some base game windows, and surprisingly again, some ones that we got from the Life and Death expansion pack. You can't really see them right now, but on the top portion of the build, or like the upper level, if you want to put it that way, them little like square windows, yeah, they are from the Life and Death expansion pack, but they worked really, really well with this kind of build, and so I decided to use them. But then over here, as you can see, I'm just coming in and just figuring out how like the front footpath leading up to the front of the build is going to look, and this is where I got a lot of inspiration from that reference image. In the reference image, there wasn't a staircase on the left-hand side, but I just kind of didn't want to block it off, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to place one down, and then that way, if the sisters are ever throwing a party or something, in my head, no one has to walk through the main house to access this pool party happening in the back garden. They can just walk onto the left-hand side of the lot, and then walk up that staircase, and then eventually you'll see, I end up placing down a little fence and a gate, and then they can access the back garden. But in terms of the family that are going to be living in this house for my save file. Like I said, I am building this for the Caliente family, which is a pre-existing family in The Sims 4. And if you played the previous versions of the game, you might be quite well versed with this family. But basically, for my save file, do you know what? I haven't even given them a complete facelift. I've just completely given them a whole do-over, if you want to put it that way, because I have completely revamped the way that they look and also completely changed the lore behind them in the game. Now, just in case you have absolutely no idea who the Caliente family are and you don't know anything about their lore or what they look like or anything, I will pop a picture on the screen for you so you can kind of get your bearings who I'm talking about. I'm going to be popping 2 pictures on the screen because, and this explains my point so perfectly, but basically the Caliente family came with The Sims 4 in 2014 at launch, but they were previously in different versions of the game. They were in The Sims 3 and also The Sims 2. Don't believe they were in The Sims 1 or like The Sims, however you class it as, but basically they're an iconic family. They are this family which to me is like the pinnacle of playing The Sims 2. When I was growing up, like, I just loved this family so much, and The Sims brought them back with The Sims 4 base game at launch. And honestly, when they first brought them back, it just felt like a big slap in the face, because if you were familiar with who this family was and what they used to look like, The Sims 4 original version of them does not resemble how they used to look in previous versions of the game. And I think because a lot of people said that they didn't look anything like what they used to look like a few years ago, it could have been like a year or 2 ago now, basically the Sims team revisited the Caliente family and gave them a second makeover to kind of make them feel a little bit more how they should look. And I must admit, even the second makeover, I'm not a fan. I miss the old Caliente family from The Sims 2. And I'm not sure if you ever played it, but honestly, if you ever get your hands on The Sims 2, go and play with the Caliente sisters. It is such a fun time. I just love them so much. But when they gave them this makeover, still to me, it just wasn't good enough. And so for my save file, I have completely revamped them again. The original Sims that they gave us, I must admit, I put them in the bin. And I created some new Caliente sisters, but I also created their previous generations and all the different kind of like lore behind it. Now, my approach to their makeovers was I wanted them to feel like The Sims 2, right? I wanted them to feel like Dina and Nina Caliente, the 2 sisters that were a little bit scandalous, a little bit after money, big romance enthusiasts. I wanted them back in The Sims 4, and so in terms of their makeovers, I basically tried to remaster what they used to look like in previous versions of the game, more precisely in The Sims 2, and put them into The Sims 4. Of course, it's not going to be completely accurate, it's not going to be the exact same, but I did my best. And you might have already noticed that in my version of the Caliente sisters for my save file, Katrina's not there, and that's because Katrina's in the bin. She's not going to be a part of my save file. Don Lothario is also not a part of his household in my save file. Don't worry, he will be in my save. Like, I'm not getting rid of Don Lothario. He's just not going to be living with the sisters. He's going to be living by himself. He's got like a little bachelor pad going on eventually. I have already built him a house, but I think I might redo it because the version of a house that I built for him is a couple of years old now, and I just feel like since he's now got his own kit, I need to kind of redo it and do it very more Don Lothario-esque. But yeah, Katrina Caliente, she's in the bin. She doesn't exist in my version of The Sims 4. Instead, they do have a mum and a dad, but they've sadly passed away, and I made it so the mum and the dad that are going to be in the sisters family tree are their original ones from previous generations of the game. Now, you know I said I wanted to re-add basically the lore behind the Caliente sisters back into my version of them in the game. A lot of that stems from their family tree and kind of like the generations beforehand, and you might have to bear with me because the family tree that I've created for them is so big, I've had to take 3 separate photos of their family tree, and so you're going to see on the screen pop up, first of all, like the main family tree for like Nina and Dina Caliente, who in my save file, they are twin sisters. That's how they were in previous versions of the game, but I believe when they came with The Sims 4, they just made them sisters instead of twin sisters. they're now back to being twin sisters. But you can see you got both the sisters, and then you've got both their mum and their dad, and also their mum and dad's parents as well. I'm going to focus on the mum side of the family first, because the dad's side of the Calientes is where we really get into the lore of it, and there's a little bit more explaining that I need to do there. But focusing on the mum side of the family, so I'll pop up with a picture of the mum's family tree. I have also created her parents as well. Currently, the way that they're looking in the family tree, they're not greyed out because I'm actually yet to kill these Sims, which sounds so bad, but basically, in order to create the original lore behind Nina and Dina Caliente, I really wanted to create the previous generations beforehand, you know, make their mum, their dad, their uncle, their grandparents, everything, but I just basically haven't killed them yet. So currently in my save file, they're walking about, unknown to them that eventually they're just going to be dead. But currently, they're not greyed out. Eventually, when my save file comes out, they're not going to be active Sims that you can interact with. They're just going to be in a graveyard somewhere. But the mum side of the family, she is called Naya Caliente, and she comes from my mum and dad. I'm saying mum and dad because this is going to be important in a second, but basically she was just this single woman, like an only child. She has a set of parents, and yeah, she's originally the Caliente's mum. And so when I first got my hands on The Sims 4 in 2014, I was expecting to see some sort of reference to the previous generations. And then when I saw Katrina, no offence, I haven't got any bad blood with her. Like, she's an alright person, but it just doesn't make any sense because what happened to their beautiful mum called Naya? Do you know what I mean? And so that is the mum's side of the family. Now moving over to the dad's side of the family. So I'll pop up a picture of their family tree. And this is where it gets a little bit more techie in terms of the lore. So Nina and Dina's dad is called Flamenco Caliente, and he does have a brother who is also in the family tree. His name is Tango. Tango's mum and dad are Nesta Caliente and Dulciana, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Caliente. But basically he is the half brother of Nina and Dina's dad, because Flamenco, the dad of the household, his biological parents is Nesta Caliente and Politician Technician 7. That's a mouthful. But basically, if you wasn't aware, the Caliente family actually stem from aliens. And if you look closely at the Caliente family name, in the middle of that last name is the word alien. I really hope that's easy enough to follow along with. Like I said, it's a little bit annoying because where I'd created so many different generations of this family, when it came around to trying to take a picture for you in the family tree, there were so many different branches that I was going left, right and centre. I had to take multiple different pictures, but in case it was a little bit difficult to follow along with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a picture of the Caliente family tree on the screen from, I think the Sims Wiki has one, but hopefully if you look at that, you can kind of get your bearings with who's who and who's what and stuff. But yeah, the Caliente sisters are actually quarter alien. I did make it so their granddad, Politician Technician 7, is a legitimate alien, which in all fairness to the Sims team, when we first got introduced to this family at launch, we didn't have aliens in the game, so I will give them that. They came with the Get to Work expansion pack. But yeah, no, their biological granddad, or one of them, is an alien. And so because of that, their son, Flamenco, when he had babies with Naya Caliente, it ended up that Nina and Dina, unbeknownst to them kind of, because I don't think there's anything in their like biological like simology system that shows this, but they are actually quarter alien. And yeah, I just re-added it back into the game just because that's how it was in previous versions of The Sims 4, and that's kind of like how I know that family, like from growing up playing The Sims 2, I just kind of knew them to be like a little bit alien, like if that makes any sense. But hopefully that was all easy enough to follow along with. But before I move over and start showing you individual pictures of Nina and Dina Caliente, I actually want to explain about the backyard situation and also some technical issues that I encountered when I was doing this build. Now don't worry, because it's fine now, and I've now since playtested this build and I didn't really run into any problems apart from one issue, which when I actually moved over to it, it was just a case of something being a little bit too close to something, so my sim couldn't get around it. But basically, you know, at the front of the build, the way that I built this house, I made it so by the front pavement, you kind of walk up some steps and then you're on a foundation. But then with that foundation, I made it look like it had fake grass in it, and I connected the outside like back garden fence to that same foundation, and that was fine. But when I moved over and I tried to come in and connect the fence from the front garden to the back garden, I cannot tell you the amount of times my game just kept on crashing. And when I say crashing, by the way, I don't mean like my game froze for a second and then it was fine. I mean like my game would just completely crash. I'm back to my desktop background and I'd lost all my process. And I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating when I say I must have gone through this process 10 plus times. It took me hours just to connect the fence from the front to the back section, and I'm putting it down to the fact that on the front section I had that like semicircle curved towery bit, and I think because it's connected to the same platform, where I was trying to drag the initial platform into the back garden, the game didn't like it. And yeah, it was causing me so many different issues. And that is the reason why, if you notice when I moved over into the back garden, I did a really cack-handed way of placing down the foundation instead of just extending it out. It's because at this point, I tried every single other method of trying to place down some sort of foundation into this back garden, and it just kept on crashing my game. In the end, we got there, and it's fine. And funnily enough, once I actually had the fence post down, it was all good, no more crashes. I even made it so there was a hot tub connected to a swimming pool, and I played around with the foundations there and I had no issues. But it was just when I was making the initial connection from the front garden to the back garden, using the foundation and the fence line, that yeah, my game kept on crashing. Honestly, I could not tell you the amount of hours I spent just trying to place down a single back garden fence. But now it's absolutely fine. Like I said, I've playtested this house. I ran into one problem in the garage, which when we actually move over and we get into it, I'll explain what it was. But it was just a case of my Sims couldn't actually get down the stairs because I placed a water heater a little bit too close to it. But other than that, your Sims are fine, like manoeuvring around. But for some reason, and I'm putting it down to the curved wall at the front of the build, I couldn't extend the foundation out into the back garden. But either way, whilst we're here, might as well explain what is in the back garden. So over here, we have like a little barbecue section. Also placed down a pizza oven, but I merged in the barbecue into some counterpieces just to make it look a little bit more built in. If you're curious, it's still fully functional. Like your Sims don't have any problems with that section. The way that I merged it in, the barbecue that I use, it's from base game and it's kind of got almost like a left wing and a right wing attached to the actual barbecue section, but your Sims don't interact with it. It's only the actual grill section that your Sims interact with. So what I basically did is I got two end pieces of a counterpiece and I merged into either side of where the barbecue wings, if you want to put it that way, are. And then yeah, on one of them I placed down a little pizza oven, and the other one I think I placed down some little tongs for the barbecue as well as a little plant. But other than that, in the back garden, yeah, we've got like a built-in hot tub into the swimming pool. If you're curious, that fully works. Like it's fully functional. I can't wrap my head around how me just trying to connect the front fence to the back fence was causing issues, and I kept on having so many different game crashes. But when I made the hot tub built into the foundation and removed the foundation over there, I didn't have any issue. Honestly, I don't even know at this point, but yeah, there is a almost like swim up hot tub, if you want to put it that way, and your Sims, some of them can be in the hot tub chilling, you know, listening to music, having a drink and that, and then the other Sims could be in the swimming pool. But now moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of the house, and I've started off by the initial entrance hallway. Like I said, for the interior furnishings for this house, I wanted to go like early 2000s Tuscan Mediterranean kind of style, and I've really struggled with this because this is not a style that I am familiar with, and you should see my Pinterest. Honestly, my Pinterest history, I'm like early 2000s Tuscans hallway, early 2000s Tuscans kitchen or living room or bedroom. I was looking up pretty much pictures for every single inch of this house just because I've really wanted to try and capture this kind of like 2004 Mediterranean kind of style. Because in my head, Nina and Dina, the sisters that now live here, they live here by themselves. You know, their mum and dad, they passed away, and I imagine that the house is kind of like left to them in the family will. And so in my head, I'm thinking their mum and dad decorated the house, but then since then they just haven't bothered to redecorate it, and so they've kind of left it in their mum and dad's style taste. I will say it does end up being quite expensive looking, but I kind of wanted it to be like that on purpose. I mean, especially in this living room, you can see here, I'm going to try and create some sort of like built-in section with eventually a TV covering up the skull on the fireplace, which now looking at it, I probably could have kept that because it does kind of look a little bit like an alien, but I think that's a little bit far-fetched. But either way, I tried to make it feel quite fancy in here and quite expensive looking because, yeah, to me, in my head, the Caliente family, they've been around for a while, and so they've definitely got a few quid in the bank. But either way, moving over and actually getting back and talking about the Sims that are going to be living here, so Nina and Dina Caliente, I'm going to pop up a picture to start off for Dina Caliente, who is basically the blonde one out of the two of them. Now, in the game, she is materialistic, ambitious, romantic, and when you enter a brand new save file, she's meant to be an assistant dishwasher. Not going to happen in my save file, I'm sorry. Both of them are going to be ladies of leisure. They're not going to have a job. They're literally going to be living off their parents' wealth. Now, in terms of Dina's makeover, I've currently got her. So her top is from the Lovestruck expansion pack, I believe. And it's just like this open top and it kind of shows a little bit of her cleavage. But then her skirt, I think is from the Get Together expansion pack. And pretty much for both Nina and Dina's makeovers, I tried to make them look like how they did in The Sims 2. In The Sims 2, Dina is wearing this little short black strappy low cut dress, and when I actually initially gave the Calientes a makeover, I say makeover, when I basically redid the Calientes, there wasn't the dress that she used to have in the game, but pretty much maybe 2-3 months ago there was this Blast the Past event where the Sims team re-added in things that used to be a part of previous versions of the game and kind of implemented it into this patch for the game. But in the patch, they included Dina's initial dress that she wore in The Sims 2. And so I'm in two minds whether I should now switch out her outfit, what she's currently wearing, and make it so she wears this like little, basically little black dress. I don't know if I should swap it out so she wears the same one that she did in The Sims 2, or if I should maybe make it so for her formal outfit she wears instead. Because going now on to Nina Caliente, I basically tried to reimagine her outfit but just in the Sims 4 terms. So for Nina's outfit, the top that she's wearing is from the Lovestruck expansion pack. Honestly, I have used that top so many different times in Townie makeovers myself. I just love it. But yeah, it's from the Lovestruck expansion pack. And then for her little pink cargo trousers, I think off memory they're from either the Discover University expansion pack or potentially the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack. Can't remember right now, but what I'll do is I'll pop into my game and I'll have a little bit of text on the screen in regards to which one it's from. It could actually be from a completely different pack, but I feel like them pants are, yeah, from one of them two. But in terms of Nina's traits, she is non-committal, hot-headed and romantic, and by default she has no career, and I'm going to keep it like that because, like I said, in my save file, both of these girls, they're just big party animals. They love to flirt, they love to party, they love having loads of people coming over. Like, I feel like this house 24/7 just has people in it. I'm not sure if you ever used to watch MTV Cribs or if even that is a thing nowadays, but I remember growing up, I always used to watch MTV Cribs, and people used to go around their house and like, oh, this is my kitchen, this is my lounge room, this is my garden, whatever. And when these people would be doing these tours, they would just have so many friends just dotted about in so many different rooms. I imagine that is Nina and Dina Caliente, but instead of teenagers, like it is on MTV Cribs, it's just these like 20-something-year-old girls, and they're living their life in their mum and dad's old house, and they're just consistently having parties, and I imagine just to be massive party animals. But yeah, that is the Caliente sisters in my save file. I'm so happy with the way that they ended up turning out, and by the way that I've made them facially, I purely based off like Sims 2, Nina and Dina Caliente. And if you ever play The Sims 2, a lot of their faces are very like slim down to the chin. And so if you have noticed that in both their makeovers, it's purely because that's how they looked in The Sims 2. And I just basically wanted to bring that version of them into the game. But either way, moving over and actually getting back and talking about the build, as you can see, I finished up that lounge room and now I've moved on into quite a fancy and quite a grand kitchen. In here, I decided to go for some of my absolute all-time favourite kitchen counters, which are just these ones from base game, but then I really wanted there to be quite a grand and fancy like oven stovetop area. And so currently I've got this like roof piece that is from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, and I thought I could try and play around with it and try and make it look like some sort of built-in hood. It was short-lived. The idea is there, and I would have used it if that particular piece came in some different colour swatches, but where we got it from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, all the different colour swatches of that roof piece were kind of like pastel-y coloured, which is great for particular builds, but just not for this one. And so in the end I went for this other, it's not meant to be a roof piece I don't think, but it's from the Lovestruck expansion pack. I basically sized it up and moved objects it in front of the kitchen cabinets, and then I got a clock and I end up rotating it so it kind of looks like it's coming out of the hood piece. I do also end up placing down some like legitimate like oven hoods, but you can't really see them unless you go into tab mode and you just take a screenshot. But yeah, there is some actual hood pieces underneath it, and then either side of the kind of like hood piece I placed down some kitchen counters on the bottom portion, and then also 2 ovens. The ovens that I've used are from the Life and Death expansion pack, and also actually the fridge that I use in this room is also from the Life and Death EP. But then other than that, got quite a decent sized kitchen island in the middle. On the kitchen island I placed down some of the clutter that we got from the most recent kitchen clutter kit, which you can see I'm currently just coming in and basically trying to scatter about some of these clutter pieces. We've got like little hanging fruit baskets, we've also got like a little cookie jar, and we've also got like a little tea and cup thing. I also just shoved some almost like pots and pans behind like the grand oven section. But then also in this room as well, from the kitchen clutter kit, I used the new coffee machine and then also the new microwave, but I didn't use the manky versions of them. I used like the normal in-game fixed version of them. If you're unfamiliar, recently we actually got 3 new kits in one go, which unpopular opinion maybe, I'm not really too sure, but I just feel like at the minute if we could just take a little bit of a standstill on the kit front, that would be great, because I feel like recently we are getting so many different kits thrown at us, and please don't get me wrong, they're lovely, but I kind of want to let the individual kits breathe, because I feel like this year alone we've had something like 10 plus kits, and they really haven't been given their own time to kind of, I don't want to say shine, but do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I haven't really got to grasp every single individual item before we get a new kit. But with one of the new kits, the kitchen clutter kit, we got a fridge, oven, microwave and coffee station thing, but when you initially put it out the build and buy category, they're broken and they're a little bit rusty and a bit minging, and basically through gameplay your sims can choose to fix it, and once they're fixed they'll look like the version that is in this kitchen. I just basically went into the debug menu and just found the fixed versions of them, because like I said, for this build I wanted it to feel like the Caliente sisters, they haven't decorated in a while, and including that I was thinking their microwave and coffee station might be not retro, because the ones from the kitchen clutter kit look like they're from the 80s or something, but maybe in my head the parents of this household, they bought them in the 80s and they just kept them or something, but they just went really nicely with the kitchen, and so yeah, I decided to put them down. But now moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the utility room. I've really struggled with this room for honestly an embarrassing amount of time. I had to cut some of it out because basically I wanted to have 2 washing machines and 2 tumble dryers, because in my head there is a lot of pool parties that goes on in this household. There's a lot of different dirty towels that accumulate from both the sisters, from their friends and stuff. And so I wanted to have 2 different washing machines and 2 different tumble dryers, but I wanted them to be on this back wall over here. But then with that, I wanted them to kind of look built in, and I tried to play around with some of the base game cabinets, kind of like similar to the ones that I use in the kitchen. But the thing is, if you go into half wall up, half wall down mode, which me personally, I'm a player of that mode in the game, I rarely ever play with all the walls up, but if you go into half walls up, half walls down mode, the kitchen cabinets would disappear, and to me that just annoys me, it just gets on my nerves. And so I played around with trying to size up and size down different shelving units, just different side tables. In the end I just used these 2, they're almost like towel cabinet kind of things. We got them from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, but they're initially meant to be from medium wall height, which makes them really hard to use in the game, because typically I'm someone that builds on the shortest wall height, but luckily for this build, both the top level and the bottom level were both built on the medium wall height. So I just placed these down either side the washing machines, and then I will admit, I did place down some cabinets kind of like joining the 2 towel units together, but I wasn't too fussed that they would disappear, because they were just on like the above level of where the washing machines would be. I wasn't too fussed because underneath there would still be something there in gameplay if you did play with half walls up, half walls down mode, if you get what I mean. But yeah, in that little utility room, I also placed down some like wicker basket things. I'm thinking for dirty towels outside. There is a little side door that kind of leans in from the garden, so I'm thinking if ever the Sims friends need a wee, they could just pop in there, and then there is a little door which goes into one of the half bathrooms in this house. And so yeah, your Sims friends, if you don't want them to, they don't have to like wander around the house. They can just kind of stay in designated areas. But now moving over, as you can see, I've started coming in and decorating the dining room. So in here, this is like the main way of how you get out onto the back garden section. Like I said, there is a little door leading from the utility room or like the laundry room into the inside of the house, but I'm thinking if the sisters want to go outside, they'll more so walk through this section. But in here I placed down a dining room table which is from the Jungle Adventure game pack. I then paired it with the chairs which are from Discover University, and then on like this back wall over here I placed down these two, they're kind of like china cabinets, and they're from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, but I did size them down a little bit because they are made again for medium wall height. But where they had the plates kind of like on the top section, I noticed that the plates would then eventually go upstairs and kind of like merge into the floor upstairs, which isn't the best look. And so I did size them down, and then on the inside of them I placed down some like pottery and then also a little picture in this room as well. But now moving on, as you can see, I've now started coming in and decorating one of the first bedrooms, which this one is purely just a guest bedroom. Now, like I've already mentioned, this house ends up having 4 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms, and I mentioned it at the start, but honestly, if you wanted to, you could very easily have maybe a 5th or even potential 6th bedroom. And now I'm even thinking about it, if you wanted to, you could also convert the garage into being an extra bedroom. So potentially this could be like a 7-bedroom house if you really wanted it to be. But in my head I was thinking, well, the sisters probably grew up in this house. This room downstairs, I'm assuming, used to maybe be like a butler's room or something, or maybe a spare guest bedroom. The other bedrooms upstairs, we've got one for Nina, one for Dina, and then another spare guest bedroom. But I was also thinking for gameplay for you now, maybe if you wanted to have Don Lothario and Katrina Caliente still be in the household, and you still need 4 bedrooms for the quote-unquote like original household family, then you could definitely still have them live in this house because yeah, there is enough bedrooms for them. But I was just thinking that the first bedroom that I decorated could be maybe a guest bedroom or potentially a butler's bedroom. I'm in 2 minds whether I want to give them a butler or not, because they're definitely going to have a maid. Like, I want them to have a maid because I don't imagine that these girls go around with a spray bottle and clean all the kitchen services and stuff. I imagine that they have someone doing that for them, but I feel like a butler might be a little bit too fancy for them. I'm in 2 minds about it. I imagine that they never cook as well. That big grand kitchen that they've got is not really used that often. They just probably employ people to come over and cook them all different meals. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the garage. Now, like I said, if you wanted to, you could definitely convert this and make this into a potential other bedroom. But for my head, I just thought it'd be quite nice to have somewhere where either one of the girls can come into here and run on the treadmill. So place down a little treadmill in almost like centre of the room. I must admit, in terms of gameplay, there isn't too much in this room other than the treadmill. There is also a decorations box, which I haven't added yet, but you know, with the seasons expansion pack, at different times of the year, there's different like festivals or different seasons that you can decorate for. I did place down one of them in the end in this garage space, but the majority of it is just purely for decoration. I do also have this live edit car over here, which you would have saw a second ago. I tried to find something to cover over because in my head I was thinking that this used to be their dad's car. In the end, I placed down, it's almost like this canopy thing. We got it from the Lovestruck expansion pack off memory, but I basically wanted there to be a car with some sort of cover over the top of it. I hope you know what I'm talking about, but I feel like with more like expensive cars or older cars, people try and preserve them in their garage spaces, and they try and have it some sort of almost like a little blanket on top of it. And I tried to find something to replicate that. In the end, the little canopy thing was the best thing for it. It does look a little bit odd I will admit. But hopefully now I've explained my reasoning for it, it doesn't seem as odd. Of course, if you wanted to, you could just completely delete the little canopy item. It was more so for like storytelling purposes, because in my mind, yeah, I was imagining that was Dina and Nina's dad's car, Flamenco, and he's since passed away, but maybe the girls didn't want a part of it, and so it's just left in the garage, kind of like collecting dust. I did sort of place down like a cobweb on one side of it as well to kind of indicate, you know, it hasn't been moved for a while, but also in that room as well, I completely spoke over it, but I placed down a water heater by the staircase when you enter that room, and when I came around to playtesting, the only one issue that I ran into with the house was my sim couldn't get downstairs into the garage because that little water heater was kind of like blocking the footpath where my sim would walk. So I did end up deleting it, but if you wanted to, you could of course rearrange the garage and maybe find a new place for the water heater. But now moving over, as you can see, I've now started coming in and I just quickly decorated half of the hallway. I kind of did the hallway on the upstairs level in kind of like sections for this build, but now moving on, as you can see, I've started coming in and decorating Nina's bedroom. Now, out of the two of them, Nina ends up having the smaller bedroom, but out of both the sisters, I don't see Nina as being as materialistic. Like I said, for Dina's trait, which is always so confusing trying to speak about Nina and Dina Caliente because their names are pretty much the exact same apart from the first letter is different. But for Dina Caliente, she is the blonde sister and she's the one that has the materialistic trait, whereas Nina Caliente, she doesn't. She has non-committal, hot-headed and romantic. And when it came round to decorating her bedroom, not even actually just for her bedroom, but for her sister's bedroom as well, I have really struggled in terms of decoration because I really didn't know how I wanted to decorate it. I knew that I wanted it to be fancy and I knew that I wanted to show some sort of level of wealth, but yeah, for both of the girls' bedrooms, I've really struggled. I must have decorated each one of them at least twice, if not 3 times, just because I didn't want to do it wrong. But in the end, I was happy with what I ended up going with, but yeah, must admit, their bedrooms was a bit of a process. But in here, as you can see, I decided to go for this bed, which is from the City Living expansion pack. I also ended up placing down 2 little armchairs in this room. I would have liked to have placed down a computer desk, but there just wasn't enough space for it, and I didn't want it to be too smushed in to this room, and so I didn't opt for a computer desk, but there does end up being a home office upstairs anyway, and so if your Sims did want to use the computer, they can just use it in that room. That is one of the spaces which, if you wanted to, you could easily make into another bedroom. And kind of on the same token, this little section over here, it's kind of like still in the hallway on the upstairs portion, but I kind of made it into a seating area. If you wanted to, you could definitely remove the archway leading this space and replace it with a door. And if you wanted to have maybe like a toddler's bedroom or maybe an infant's bedroom in this house, I feel like this size bedroom would kind of be appropriate for that. Also, I wanted to mention, because you might have seen it when I was decorating Nina's bedroom, but for the extra bedroom up here, like the spare guest bedroom, I didn't show the furnishing just because I really struggled with that room. I ended up making a bed out of a Seasons bed frame, and then I merged in some like metal fence pieces that we got from the Life and Death expansion pack, and honestly the footage for that room, it just took me so long, and at the end of the day it was just a guest bedroom, and so I did decide to cut it out. I really hope you don't mind, but like always, there'll be screenshots of absolutely everything at the end of the video. Currently, right now, I'm just coming in and kind of finishing up that little hallway section, and now I'm going to move over into the home office. Now, for this home office, this is the only one computer in the house, and in my mind, this used to be Nina and Dina Caliente's dad's home office. Now, for their dad, Flamenco's career, I'm just going to assign him so he used to be in like the business career or something, although thinking about it, I'm not sure if it's actually going to make a difference because, like I said, I'm actually going to end up topping him. Like, he's not going to be a living sim in my save file, and so I'm not sure if it actually matters, but I imagine that Nina and Dina's dad used to be quite a fancy businessman, and that's how he was able to, you know, afford this house for his wife and his 2 little girls. But yeah, I imagine that this used to be his little home office. This is the only one computer space in the house. For both the girls' bedrooms, like I said, I just didn't have enough space to be able to fit a computer in, but maybe they just have like a little laptop in their inventories or something. I actually personally don't imagine that they are two Sims that would often need to use the computer. I imagine that they would just text their friends or maybe spend the majority of the time on their cell phones rather than on a legitimate computer. But I thought for a house of this size, it would be so silly not to have a computer somewhere. And so, yeah, I just made like a little office space for their dad, or what their dad used to be. He's not going to be around eventually. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the first bathroom, which you're actually going to see me decorating this whole entire build, and it is the only one because there is 3.5, and bathrooms, they're just a little bit too boring to watch be decorated. And so I only show you the furnishing for this one, but I am so happy with the way it ended up turning out. Both of the girls have their own ensuite bathroom, and then there is also another like spare bathroom upstairs alongside with that little like half bathroom downstairs for like guests to use if they're ever over for like a pool party or something. But for this one bathroom, I'm not joking when I say I must have attempted this maybe like 4-5 different times. I really struggled with it because, again, going back to when I was doing this build, I was really researching on Pinterest, you know, early 2000s Tuscan bathroom, Tuscan living room, Tuscan bedroom, like all these different things. And I noticed in a lot of the images that I was seeing on Pinterest, a lot of them had like built-in bath features, or like where people would walk up some little steps to get to the bath in kind of like this style of bathroom. And I had attempted so many different versions of this, and in the end, the way that I had the roofline on this house, it just weren't going to work. And so I didn't opt for that, but I still got a pretty fancy bathtub in this bathroom. The one that I ended up using, it's from the Get Famous expansion pack, I believe, off memory, but I used it in a colour swatch, which honestly I don't think I've ever used or if I've ever even attempted to use before. It's kind of like this off-white yellowy kind of colour with a little bit of orange in the bottom. Also got a walk-in shower in that bathroom alongside with a bathroom, vanity and toilet. But now moving on, I've now moved on into the last bedroom in this house. I still am going to revisit the exterior. I forgot to mention this, but I wanted to make some quick changes to the exterior because I felt like through the way that I decorated the interior of the house, it was feeling a little bit too old in comparison to how I did the garden initially. And so I do revisit the back garden. I change out the sun lounges and kind of like rejig it a little bit. But in this bedroom, this is the one that Dina is going to be sleeping in. So like I already said, Dina is materialistic, ambitious and romantic. And I wanted her to have the bigger bedroom out of the two sisters just because she is the materialistic type. So in here, I use the bed that we got from the For Rent expansion pack. Also have quite a big fluffy rug underneath her bed, which that rug is from the Industrial Loft kit. And then I played around with trying to make her some sort of walk-in wardrobe for honestly an embarrassing amount of time. I tried to use these shelving units that we got from the Crystal Creation stuff pack, and I tried to merge in some clothes into them, but then there was a little bit of an awkward gap because where I'm building on a medium wall height, I just had so much empty space. And honestly, I just cut it out because it was just so long-winded, and watching it back in the edit, it was painful. And so I just completely scrapped that footage. But there is a walk-in wardrobe in this bedroom, but it's just not one that you can kind of see the clothes. The one that I've used is just from the Get Together expansion pack, but also in Dina's bedroom. She's got a little makeup vanity where I'm thinking she is quite materialistic. I also imagine her to be a little bit self-absorbed. I might try and see if I can actually do a bit of gameplay and get her to discover that personality trait, because if you've got the Growing Together expansion pack, your Sims can kind of like discover personality traits throughout gameplay. Sometimes it's great, other times it's a little bit annoying, but no, I do imagine her to be a little bit self-absorbed. And so yeah, I gave her a little makeup vanity in her bedroom. But other than that, in her bedroom I placed down a bit of artwork, a plant, and then also a mirror. And now I'm just revisiting the back garden and just making a few like minor changes, just rejigging it a little bit. I end up replacing the initial sun lounges with ones that we got from, I think the ones that I end up using in the end were from the Desert Lux kit. But other than that, I'm going to go around the build, finish it off and make some final touches by adding like a little umbrella, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT. You can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.